Hello for the 26th on an ordinary time, and using only the gospel from Luke, chapter 16, 19 to 31. And it's a story about Lazarus and a rich man, or it's also called Dives, the rich man, and Lazarus, the beggar, the poor man. And it's very graphic, as you probably know the story. But did you know that this past week and next week is celebrated in the United States, and then next week in the world, the church is celebrating the recognizing migrants as missionaries of hope. Interesting. I'm going to talk about that because we need to talk about that. And it says in this ordo is all the instructions for the priests and the religious and so forth, with the church readings and feast days and so forth. And even when they pray their office, it says, today, on the last day of September, World Day of Migrants and Refugees is observed. And this is when we are trying to get us more aware of the message of Jesus Christ in the parable and what is happening in our country and what is happening in our world. So let me just read you as far as this little introduction. It's a page. The Catholic Church in the United States will observe National Migration Week from September 22 to 28. And that's this Sunday, 28. This year, as the Universal Church marks its Jubilee year, the World Day of Migrants and Refugees will be observed on October the 4th and 5th, coinciding with the Jubilee of the Migrants. Well, this is what's happening. I didn't even realize. I bet you didn't either. It says for 45 years, the United States Catholic Church has celebrated the National Migration Week by reflecting on its history as an immigrant church and the ways in which the church has been enriched by generations of immigrants, including the many Catholics who have adopted this land as their own. It is also an opportunity to grow in appreciation of the challenges faced by migrants and refugees, both in the United States and beyond, and to express solidarity through prayer, accompaniment, and advocacy. Pope Francis, our recent Pope, deceased now, had chosen Migrants, Missionaries of Hope as the theme for this year's commemoration, underscoring a key hallmark of his pontificate and recognition of the courage and resilience of migrants and refugees who bear daily witness to hope despite hardship. The United States bishops have consistently expressed solidarity with immigrants amid the fear and anxiety prompted by current immigration enforcement efforts. The bishops have called for and continue to press for a more humane system of immigration, one that protects our communities while safeguarding the dignity of all. This includes encouraging bipartisan collaboration among policymakers and governments and churches and all the people of the world. Well, it's sort of interesting because last weekend, Sunday afternoon, I went up to Northern Kentucky to celebrate the Heman family picnic. And you know, I am 25% Irish and 75% German. And that's what we celebrated, our family picnic. We had some 70 people there. And I had a mass at 3 o'clock. And then there was a lot of beer and a lot of chicken and a lot of food to eat and a lot of conversation. And it was a grand old time. But my family were migrants, refugees. And Norbert passed out a one-page thing about our family. And I'd like to just tell you that quickly. Our family, the Heman family, immigrated from Ibbenbüren, Germany. It's northwest Germany. in July 1845, 180 years ago. They left Bremen, Germany, on a ship traveling through the North Sea and Atlantic Ocean, arriving in the port of Baltimore on July 17th, 1845. So that's 180 years ago. And the guy by the name of Gerhard was the husband, and Anna Marie, the wife, the Hemans. That was my great grandfather and grandma. And then they had 7 kids. And one of those kids was Gerhard, the son. And then he and all 7, they came over with him, and they had kids. And one of theirs was Heinrich or Gerhard. And he then had my grandpa and his wife, Gert. They were the people in the United States who settled in Newport, Kentucky, or Southgate, Kentucky. They helped build the church there, St. Teresa, which is right around Beverly Hills. And the grandpa built houses for his kids in Newport, and they were Roman Catholics in a heavily settled refugee place in northern Kentucky, and grew in numbers. And so they had their kids, and one of those is my dad, Stanley. He's one of the eight kids. And they were refugees, and they were Catholics. And by golly, they still are. And they're still there. And they like it there. That's where I'm from. You know what? It's a good German community in northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area. And since I've been in Lexington since 1969, I look up back to my upgrowing and roots, and I call it a Roman Catholic German ghetto. What amazes me is I think most of our human family are still Roman Catholic Christians. But not all of them, like everybody else. But most of them, as I said, we had 70 there at this picnic. I tried to zero in a little bit on the younger people, younger meaning at 20, 30, 35, because some of them aren't practicing Roman Catholics, but most of those are practicing Christianity in other denominations. And some perhaps aren't even practicing at all. And I said, well, at least I hope everybody starts with the bottom and most important, and that is act good, be good. My prof in Innsbruck, Austria, had a theory back in the 50s, 1950s, called the anonymous Christians. Bottom level is if you act like Jesus and do things like Jesus and have the mentality of Jesus, that's the most important. And then the next really is the follower of Jesus, be one of his disciples, and be a Christian. And if you have been one of his disciples as a Christian, you might be one of his disciples as a Roman Catholic Christian. And that is the key to what we are experiencing. In this world with refugees and governments, we're having a very difficult time with borders, who comes in, what kind of people come in, and what we have to do. So the church looks to all people as created in the image and likeness of God. And we are to try our government, our communities, our families, and me, myself, and I, to realize that all people are created in the image and likeness of God. And when Jesus came, the Jew, the good Jew that he was, he bought Judaism. And in Judaism, it says, love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. Love yourself, love your neighbor, and love all. And with Jesus, the Jew, he backed up and bought the law of Moses, the Ten Commandments, and he bought the Old Testament, and he said, love the Lord your God with your whole heart, mind, and soul, which is stated in the Old Testament. But Jesus also said, be perfect as my heavenly Father is perfect. And so he gives all kinds of perfect thrust toward being good, a loving person, loving your neighbor, and loving your God. And that's what somehow we need to try to do better with the people in the world and the refugees and the multiple of people that are leaving their countries because they're so poor and there's no jobs and they have to, like my family did in the middle 1800s. And we are still Catholic and still Christian, and I hope still good people, which I think it showed, at least me last week. I was proud of the family. But we all are to try to, and we don't want people who are thugs or drug addicts or drug people, sellers, I think that's the only answer. And I think many of these people who have come from other places are really good people and love their family, and we're called to love them. We're still called to keep our borders secure, but we're called to be Christian people keeping our borders secure and how we regulate the process or how we might need to redo the process. Folks, our country's founded on democracy. It's founded upon refugees like my family, and it's founded upon good Christian Catholic people, but mainly Christian. A few Jews too, quite a few Jews. And we have a big problem, and we need to attack it and continue to try to solve it. Otherwise, our democracy fails, our religion is failing because we are. I don't have all the answers, but I do believe that if you zero in on that Genesis, men and women, Adam and Eve, are created in the image and likeness of God and all people. And if you zero in on that Old Testament, love your neighbor as yourself. And if you zero in that Old Testament on love the Lord your God with your whole heart, mind, and soul. And you zero in on your religion if you're Catholic, the same principles. This past week and next weekend, we are dedicated to the refugees, recognizing that migrants and missionaries are good people of hope. Not all of them, but probably most of them. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Have a good day.